Hello, welcome back to another Spark Outbound Live. I'm Jonathan Seller, CEO of Spark Outbound, and today I have our creative director joining me again, Howard Campbell.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing?
Welcome, Howard. So today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. It's more of an SEO focused topic today, and we're going to be digging into this new Google Core Web Vitals update that is really taking effect in May. It's a very unusual, I will describe it as unusual update from Google because Google usually never tells us anything ahead of time that's going to affect how they view web pages or view rankings. Usually they always are very just generic with their information that they're sharing, and they're usually just saying like make the best content or be the best site that you can possibly be. But this time they actually gave us what I would consider a significant heads up that they were going to be doing some very specific changes to things that they were looking at within the ranking algorithm of how to prioritize sites. And they're calling it the Google Core Web Vitals Update. As I just mentioned, it is coming into effect in May. So, right now as we're going live, this is, beginning mid-April. So we have less than a month or roughly a month. We don't know, I don't think we know the exact date yet of when it's going to go live in May, but we have some days left to start addressing these things. And what we wanted to do today is really just talk about what is this, why is it happening, and then maybe what does it really mean? Like how serious is this, I guess. So, just wanted to, before we get going, I just want to always remind everybody that if you like digital marketing content, if you like, viewing or discussing different topics around lead generation, digital ads, outreach, or SEO, that's what we always discuss when we go live. And so please feel free to subscribe and or click on the bell, the notification bell, to make sure every time we go live, you will receive the notification. And if you have questions or comments, always feel free to add them down below. Um, we will try to always answer them either during or after, as soon as we can. And otherwise, you can always drop by our website, drop us a line, and we'll be happy to jump on a call and discuss it with you if something we are discussing here, I guess, rings a bell with you or is a concern with you, and you want to discuss it further. So, um, Howard and I have been working on this for the past few months, and what actually tipped us off to this is one of our clients started receiving from Google Search Console a report that it was just this horrible report. It was filled with red, everything looked bad. It's like your site is terrible, and they were kind of freaking out about it. They're like, "What is this?" And this was maybe probably 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, they brought this to our attention. So we started digging into it, and it was definitely something in Search Console at that time, which we were kind of unaware of it. It was this new section called Core Web Vitals, and we were wondering, what is this? What does this mean? And then there's also a mobile usability tab added into Search Console. Um, and pretty much all the reports are just horrible. It's just like your site is poor. I think it's what is it? Yeah, poor. They use the word poor to describe it, or needs improvement, or good. So in these cases that we were looking at early on, that everything was poor, like most of it was poor. So we started digging in, and essentially Google, back in 2020, late 2020, they announced this. They announced they were rolling it out into Search Console, and the reason why they're focusing on these things at the core of it is for user experience. So for the past few years, we've been hearing about what's most important, which is content. So the highest quality content, most valuable content will be theoretically awarded with the best rankings. And then the other things that we've known for years with SEO, which is authority. So backlinks, who has the most authoritative backlinks and who has the most trustworthy backlinks, high quality backlinks, all the different areas of focus with backlinks. And then, content though has really been for the past few years, the past 2, 3, 4 years has really been the thing. It's like, do we create longer content? Do we create content in different format clusters? Do we create content, massive amounts of individual content on topics? Or do we create one massive piece of content on a topic? And so all these different theories, all these different tests people have been doing. Um, and so in the meantime, Google, has obviously been focusing on that as well. But now what they're seeing is a couple things. So one is mobile web access is exponentially growing. People are using the internet on their phones more and more. This is worldwide. That's it, a lot of people especially in other countries outside the U.S., maybe don't have home internet, like they don't have fiber or cable or satellite driven internet, but they do have mobile internet on their phone. Um, and so that shift has been coming for a while. We've known that, and we also see, um, you know, I guess what the implications of that are when sites are bigger. It takes longer to load on phones, and it takes when people are paying for their data, it takes data to load these bigger pages. So, in addition to that, you want people to be able to navigate throughout your site easily on both desktop and mobile. So a lot of people historically they have a beautiful desktop site, the mobile site may be lacking or not as easy to navigate. So Google has been obviously studying this, and what they have come up with is some of these core web vitals, which and mobile usability tests, which are going to be used to determine is your site easy to use. So, for example, two common things are buttons or things where you click too close together, where it's common that people will potentially try to click one thing, but they hit the other instead? Or is your site just mobile friendly? So is it responsive, and is it, you know, is it actually functionally responsive where it's, no matter what the size device it is, that it's working properly? And then the core web vitals is actually primarily focused on page speed, website access issues. And so I wanted to, just before I jump in with Howard over kind of some of the things we've been doing, what I wanted to do is I'm just going to go to a resource from, this is a search engine journal resource. I just wanted to kind of highlight like what are some of the things that Google is looking at just in general from a page experience search signal level. And so the new core web vitals, three things are going to be loading time. So that is your largest contentful paint, LCP. That's one of the core web vitals. Interactivity. So the first input delay. Um, so the loading time is essentially when the biggest item on the page loads. How long does that take? And for some sites, that can be like a long time on mobile. Um, Interactivity is the first input delay. So how quickly does something happen? Excuse me. And then visual stability, so the cumulative layout shift. Um, that should be like almost immediate. Like there should really be no delay in that, but sometimes there is. Like sometimes all these different blocks and things are trying to load, and it's trying to like. This is more, I think, related to just generally being. And I'm not a developer, but I think the way I interpret this is it's more towards just being a mobile responsive site. Like, is your site having to like restructure, or is it just responsive? And then obviously some of the longer time um, search intent signals that have been around for a while, or is it just generally mobile friendly? Is it secure? and then are there intrusive interstitials, so like pop-ups or different things that are dropping down and preventing you from using the site. Google has said for a long time that those things are negative to the user experience. People get frustrated with it and they want to avoid it. So um, anyway, so what I wanted to do now is, so if we think about, once again, just reiterating the purpose of this, of what's happening now, is the next phase of like things to focus on are around user experience, and it's about primarily page speed, page load time, and it's about your usability. So how is your site functioning from desktop to mobile, and are you giving somebody a great experience no matter which device they're on? Keeping in mind that essentially Google has a mobile and a desktop search engine, like it's basically separate. So we have been, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have been digging into this for a few months now, and so um, we have learned a considerable amount. We have made some considerable improvements. I don't, you probably can't see this screen here though. I got our core web vitals on our site, so sparkoutbound.com pulled up here. So for the longest time, we had poor or needs improvement for all the URLs that it was registering here. And over the past, what is this? Like 3 weeks roughly, we've shifted that to be reporting as good URLs on desktop. We were getting nothing on our mobile report, so nothing was showing up until about a week and a half ago, and now we have the same number of URLs essentially showing up as good for mobile. So a lot of work went into that. We made a lot of changes. Howard's going to go through some of that shortly. We still have some mobile usability issues. We use WordPress. We use a theme. The theme is mobilely responsive, um, but there's still some things that we have to work on. We're going to have to manually make some changes, and we might also, we're considering and weighing out this option. We're considering just updating to a theme that has a little bit more of this baked into their theme, the theme itself, like they've done a bit more than our current theme with addressing these issues. Um, so one of the most important things that we use it all the time now, um, as we're making changes and we're trying to assess the effect of those changes, is Google's page speed insights. Page speed insights. This is a critical tool in determining where you need to improve things. And so this is kind of like your guide. This is like telling you, um, here's the problem, here's the possible solution, or at least it's giving you direction on how to find the solution. I got this pulled up once again. I probably can't see it just because of the camera, but so this is another website we've been working on, Spark Research Group. It's our um, sister company. We do market research there. So we actually have the desktop page speed insight score up to 91 on that site. We've been doing some testing, a lot of testing there. We actually have the mobile score up to 50, and that's obviously not good, but comparatively, it's more than double it was before. So we just have more and more to work on there. There's more, as I said, that's kind of the core of it, is how do we get mobile experience better because of the challenges around it. Um, yeah, so what I want to do now is just turn to Howard, and I'm going to pull up a different page speed insights report for Spark Outbound that has, it's kind of like a bad score. And I want to talk through some of the bigger issues and, let Howard kind of give some insight into what we did there. One of which being, um, I guess maybe let Howard introduce what we did at the core of it. Like, how did we? So when we got these bad tests and it was telling us all these different things we needed to do,
Mm-hmm.
I guess Howard, what was the first step we took to even start implementing some of these changes? Because we're not neither one of us are a developer. So
Right.
just preface it with that.
Okay, so a good thing is that we both Jonathan and I have a foundation on the design part when it comes to web design, right? So one thing that we did work on was the images. We understood, like for example, um, we was using a plugin on WordPress that provided images that you can just go and search the. You can basically search the image, and then it will tell you which image is there. We pull that image from that site. I mean, from that resource, and then they will use that image. The problem was is that when we was using that image was huge. It was like the image was really meant for like to use in magazines and things like that. So you're talking about images that are like 15 megabytes big or 17 megabytes. You know what I mean? The size of 17 megabytes. And you really don't need that huge of an image on a website. You know, I mean, like I said, you rare like I just can't think of any time that you would need an image that's like 17 megabytes big, large, that size, unless it was a website that was being used to that was hosting images. Think Pixabay or Pexels or a site like that. And so and then a lot. So we was using a couple of those images, and then we realized that we need to find a way to either reduce the size or minimize the images. So one thing we end up using was like a couple, like I said, as Jonathan said, our website is WordPress powered, right? And so one thing about WordPress is they do have a lot of plugins that are very beneficial to what you want to do with your website. And one of the plugins was WP Optimize, and so we was able to use that plugin to optimize the images, on top of doing some other things we will speak about a little bit later. But definitely was able to reduce the size of those images. Like really reduce them. I mean, you're talking about images that may have been like I said, we were saying before, like 17 megs big, and we're able to reduce them down to like maybe 50 to 60 kilobytes. You know, and you're talking about shrinking the image to maybe I mean less than 10% of what the original image size, right? This helps out with the page speed, because as Jonathan was talking about, the paint as it's painting the website up there, the image it usually one of the biggest things they do, they go for the biggest image and how long it takes for that biggest image to download so somebody can see it. Download to the computer, to your to your tablet, to your mobile phone, and see how long that would take to to show up. And just that alone helped tremendously with the speed of um, SparkOutbound.com and Spark Research Group, you know, and oh, and also other sites that we work on for other clients, because we did the same thing with them. And so that's at least one of the things that we utilize to help reduce the sizes. I mean, reduce the size of the website. Another one was also like using like WP Optimize. We were able to minify the HTML and the CSS, and also we was able to you know reduce some of the JavaScript, because JavaScript are huge. It's a huge thing on the website, especially when JavaScript is like in the header. So you're in the header of your website, and it's just in it. I mean, like I said, it can really be a heavy. I mean, it just really just cause a lot of trouble when on the upload of the site, And so one thing we always, I mean, while we was doing that, another thing we also came to our we found clarity in, I guess, would be, oh well, do we even need this JavaScript? You know, some of the plugins wasn't actually needed at the time. And once we turned off those plugins or deleted those plugins and got rid of that JavaScript, man, I mean, it really helped speed up the website, especially the desktop, the version of the site. Like I said, and it helped out with the mobile part of the site, and we're and so and also with that we're able to just and also help out with the user experience. And the thing is that as long as we're trying to get the user experience as good as I mean, as the best that we can possibly do, because this is still a work in progress, and we're still going to continue doing what we can to make sure that this is user friendly and optimized for the user. And and so like I said, the question is always going to be when we're looking at a lot of the stuff that we do: do we need this for the website? You know, if we don't need it, we get rid of it. If we do need it, we find a way to utilize it and to optimize it. But without any optimization or not being able to or without any optimization, you really run a really big risk on your website just being hit. And like I said, this can cause a lot of consequences to your website, um, not only to the user experiences, but also can um, be detrimental to your ranking of the site.
Yeah, so yeah, so I think that's a good summary because I think that really follows like our logic of when we're like, okay, the site has to be faster. So the first thing was, well, what can we make smaller? What files can we make smaller? So the first thing we started with was images. Then we did the minification to the HTML and CSS, which essentially you're just making the code smaller. It's a smaller file packet. I'm not sure if that's the correct language, but it's just smaller file sizes, so it should be simpler to read um, and to open the page. Then there were some more technical things where we still were able to use WP Optimize for a lot of this, but some of the more technical things that were originally outside of our scope were things like preloading key requests. And so that's where we're essentially, adding to preload certain things so they don't have to load every time. And so there's caching, like having your site cached in certain servers so it loads faster. Um, Howard hit on removing unused JavaScript and also trying to eliminate render blocking JavaScript. So essentially, if there's code that's on your site, so like some code could be like Google Analytics or Google Ads conversion tracking code, or like if you have a HubSpot or something like that, the code that is tracking people or your forms, um, all of that code, like you have to ask, does this code need to happen? Does this code need to run before people see my site? And if it doesn't, then you should defer it or you should remove it maybe. If it's not, but like obviously your HubSpot, your active campaign, that's what we use. You need that code. You need your your Google Analytics code. Like you need certain codes. So it's all about prioritizing when does it load and essentially is it delaying people actually seeing the site, because if the site takes too long to load, people will never see the site because they leave
Mm-hmm.
and they'll never come back. And then yeah, and then I think some of the other things were having an efficient cache policy. Like some of these things we're still working through. It's not like all of these things are 100%. Like we acknowledge our sites are still a work in process, but we just want to make sure people are aware that these are things that need to be that need to be a focus right now. Um, yeah, and so I think Howard had there. One other thing we did. Okay, so on the mobile site, the largest contentful paint on our desktop site is the image that's in our header. Okay, And so what Howard did on mobile is remove that image completely. So our header actually looks different from our desktop to mobile, and that did help with our mobile. Some, at least with our core web vitals, the way it's interpreted, um, it's still we still have what I would consider significant work on the mobile side to make the actual site speed faster. But by removing that, it definitely helped um, with that largest contentful paint, because then that's now not the largest item on the page, and it was before. So I know that was something good. The cumulative layout shift. So I know Howard mentioned, maybe, and this might have been a previous conversation, but we were discussing, and I think this is a good time to shift into what does this really mean portion of today's conversation. So I think just before this, we were discussing, there's varying opinions on how much this is going to impact people and what is this really going to do to the search landscape. Like when you think back a few years ago, and Google came out with the Panda and Penguin updates, and they essentially started penalizing people for doing spammy backlink building and just low quality backlinks to try to manipulate the rankings. Um, that was a major impact, major impact. So people who ranked for hundreds or thousands of keywords overnight, they woke up the next day and they didn't rank for anything, because their site just got completely de-indexed and things like that. So um, I don't think anybody's thinking that. I don't think anybody out there is thinking that if your largest contentful paint is, 5 seconds versus 2.5 seconds, that you're going to lose all your rankings. But and Howard was making that point. It's like, is it really is it really this major, massive shift that's going to happen? I don't think so on day one, and I think that's what Howard had shared.
No, I no,
Yeah,
I agree. I agree. I don't think it's going to be like from day one. It's going to be like, oh man, it's just happening. In the day of May, a day of May, it just everything is just changed and it's just like that. But and a lot of people, like I say, we're doing a lot of research and we're seeing what a lot of people have to say about it, and a lot of a lot of the different websites, a lot of people on different websites and saying, it's not going to be that big of a deal. I mean, and and keep in mind, I'm sitting there like, I hear you. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's not going to be like, what I mean, like just a straight uppercut, right? But I still think that it's going to. I mean, but for Google to say something about it, right? That got to mean something, right? Because there a lot of the changes they made, they just made them and didn't say it. And like they like, okay, this update happened, right? They didn't tell you the update was coming. They just told you this update happened, you know. Or if they did say it, it was like in some white paper that that only a handful of people read. But this one, they're telling everybody this is going to happen, right? And the fact that they're saying this is going to happen just got me looking like, okay, they're saying it, so take heed to it. They're not just going to say it just for the sake of saying it, you know. At least that's my opinion about it. But I mean,
yeah,
I just don't see it that way. I mean, like I said, me personally, or what, especially what we're doing over here with Spark, we're definitely making sure, hey, cross our T's, dot our I's, and err on the side of caution. And make sure
yeah,
that we're good. But I mean, but one thing, and I know Jonathan and I was talking about this earlier, was content is still king. It's still king, right? And so one of the things they were saying on the website, I don't want to paraphrase. So I wrote this on notes. So let me read this verbatim what I wrote. All right. It says, our systems will continue to provide pages with the best information overall, even if some aspects of page experience are subpar. A good page experience doesn't override having great relevant content, and that is what search engine land said, quoted from Google, right? So I'm not saying so. that so I mean at the end of the day, like I said, content is king. Provide great content, right? But I also believe that if you and Jonathan and I was speaking about this before, that if you have if you have two sides that kind of got very similar content, right? But your page is optimized for the core web vitals, and this page isn't, then expect this page to go up just a little bit. You know, I'm just like, man, every move matters. So I would just say be err on the side of caution and just and make sure that your sites are updated with the core web vitals.
Yeah. No, that's really a really good point. Every move does matter, and it matters. The closer you get to position one, the more it matters.
Mm-hmm.
The more significantly it will have an impact on your results. And which in turn, if we're talking about money keywords, that it's a massive impact on your business at a financial level as well. Most clicks go, to the top two or three search results. And like Howard just said, if you created great content and your competitor created great content, and you've been kind of in this battle for the top spots, maybe you have a few competitors, all of you created the greatest content, and you're the only one, or one of them is the only one who takes heed to this and really pushes their site performance. They're probably, going to jump up. They're probably going to take the top spot, or at least they're going to progress. Um, Obviously, there's so many things. There's 200 plus things that go into site rankings. So, but like Howard said, it's very rare that Google has dictated to us in advance any of them before. I don't remember any. I do remember, like, maybe a couple things about local search that were given with some type of advance notice, but I've never known something given like 5 or 6, 7, 8 months advance notice that you need to do this. Now, I will say with the backlink thing in the past, Google did give warnings, but it was very vague. So it would be more like somebody from Google who's in a leadership position basically saying that, we're aware that there are issues with things that people are manipulating things and we don't like it, right? But they're not saying specifically what it is that they're aware of, and they're not saying what the repercussions are going to be or the timeline for when it's going to happen. Um, those were direct manipulations. So that's the difference between those updates and this update. A lot of the big updates where it's just like, just like really impactful. And there's only been a few through history, but whenever those happen, it was always in direct response to direct manipulation. So things were happening that were people were going out. They found a loophole, basically. They found a hack to do something, and then that something would result in, um, great rankings. Like in the old days, it was if we just use the keyword the most times on our site, we'll rank number one. So we're going to go in and we're just going to create sections of your page which are blue, and we're going to put the keyword in there like 75 times in blue text. So nobody will even see that it's there. And then Google back then was much less sophisticated. So it would see 77 keywords on this page. This must be the page that has the most information about this topic. It's way different from that. Like we're so far beyond that.
Yeah.
But I would say this is not I don't think you can manipulate this. Like I don't think this is something. I don't think people were manipulating their page speed in a way where it was so much better. I think it's a lot of work, and I think it's just it's needed. This is what's needed. And I think Google will probably, in my opinion, and I think Howard's too, they're probably going to roll it out. It will become part of the algorithm, but they're probably going to put minimal to moderate value on these core web vitals
Hmm.
for some amount of time. But we could be wrong, and that could not be true, and there could be big shifts. So people who score 91 are going to jump ahead of people who score, I don't know, 45. Um, But with what how that bit that Howard did share, I still think if our site that ranks 91 doesn't have as good of quality content, I still think that site with a 45 will rank above it. I think the site that ranks 91 though will move. It will move positively on keywords where there's room. And I think in the bigger example, if we have some awesome content and a competitor has awesome content and various other metrics like authority, backlink profile, on-site SEO, fundamentals, um, and then now we layer in web core web vitals scores and page mobile usability scores. Those things will all combine. It's a never ending process to get there, but it's all just with really at the end of the day, it's all with the thought of I'm providing the best. So I'm providing the best content. I'm providing the best experience. Um, so on and so forth. So I think that's about it for today's discussion. If you have any questions or anything, feel free to drop them below. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell if you want to see our next live. We'll be coming in um, probably for the rest of April. We're probably going to do every other week. In May, we're probably going to jump back into once a week. But either way it goes, if you click that notification bell, you'll get the notification when we go live, and hopefully you can join us. Um, any final thoughts on this, Howard? Any final recommendations you might have for
Uh,
anyone?
content is king. Make sure that you provide great content when you want for your business. You know what I mean, for anything else. You won't. I mean, at the end of the day, people when people come into your website to check out your website, they want information, right? And so you want to make sure that you provide great information that's going to be a benefit to not only you, but I mean you and your company, but also to a potential client or a prospect or anybody visiting your site. So I mean, like I said, content is king. Make sure you provide good content, something that's going to be beneficial, helpful, and and then and also just I mean, and just keep on keeping on. You know, thing about Google, they're constantly evolving, and so the best thing to do is to make sure you're ahead of this, and you're doing the best you can for what you have, versus just being like, oh, don't worry about it, it's not going to happen to us, and then it does happen to you, and then you're playing the game of catch up, and ketchup may taste good on a sandwich, but it's not a good place to be in. So definitely make sure that you're ahead of this.
Yeah, exactly. I think just as we end, I wanted to just do one quick rundown. While you were saying that, I was just thinking of the pieces of this puzzle. So want to run down real quick for anybody who's stuck around at this point, all the things that are relevant and important that you should be looking at. So obviously Google Analytics, you're getting all kinds of information about your site visitors from there, but you want to make sure that you have your Google Search Console. Google Search Console is where you're going to know how people are interacting with your site on search. It's going to also be where you find the scores of how Google interprets your core web vitals and page and mobile usability. The tool you can use to test all of this and get basically direction for what needs improvement is called Page Speed Insights. That's also from Google. Page Speed Insights. If you're on WordPress, the plugin we have been used to do most of our optimization is called WP Optimize. Its icon is orange, but it's WP Optimize. We also, one thing we really didn't cover, but it is something we've done. In addition to just lowering the image file size and minifying the images, we also converted images to WebP format, which is a web format, which also significantly reduces file size and load time. Um, and so there's different plugins that can help you do that. Um, and then I'm just trying to make sure that those are really the big things. As long as if you're not on Google Search Console, you need to get on Google. You need to make sure you connect your site to Google Search Console. It provides a lot of helpful information. If you have a developer, somebody on your team who can handle this, they can take that information and go put in a plan of action. And then page speed insights is very, very helpful. It gives you the context around the problem, and it also will typically link you to a resource that can provide more detailed information or suggestions. Um, yeah, and then that WP Optimize, you don't have to use that. You can, if you have a developer specifically, they can manually code these things in. There's other plugins as well. If you're off WordPress, there may be some solutions to that as well, but you might have to use a developer more in some circumstances. So, but yeah, I mean that's really it. And if you want to discuss this or have us take a look at your site, happy to do so. Just come to our website, sparkoutbound.com. You can find it through our channel. So if you go to our channel, there should be the link to our website there, or it's just sparkoutbound.com. And otherwise, we will look forward to seeing you on our next live.
All right. Take care
See
of
you
yourself.
later.